All right, guys, let's take a look at this week's internet weather. These are the top 10 most probed ports for the past week. You can see that there has not been a lot of movement, but we will run through the list anyway. Port 23 TCP is at the top. That's Telnet. 445 TCP is SMB. In third place, we have ICMP, which is ping. 3389 TCP is remote desktop protocol. 22 TCP is SSH. So in sixth place, port 6379, which I believe is Redis, which is an in-memory data store. In seventh place, AT&T has moved up 4 slots. That is plain old web, and we'll take a closer look at that. In eighth place, 81 TCP, which is usually an alternate web port. Ninth place, 443 TCP, which is SSL, TLS. And 10th place, 123 UDP, which is network time protocol. So moving on to the most sources probing. Again, this is number of individual hosts as opposed to volume of traffic. Not a lot of movement here. I'll run down the list and see if there's any ports we haven't described yet. I think 23 TCP Telnet we did, but 22 TCP SSH we did not mention. Both 8291 and 8728 are related to MikroTik routers. 8080 TCP is a web port. 1433 is, I believe, Microsoft SQL Server, and I think the rest we have covered in some capacity. Taking a look at port 80 TCP for the last 30 days, this is the number of scan flows, so volume. You can see a number of big spikes, and they all seem to be from the same set of hosts, and they're actually single or like a handful of sources from those different hosts. So suddenly someone gets very interested in scanning web traffic. Unfortunately, I don't have anything to tell you what exactly they're looking for. The port 80 is still very popular as a way of getting HTTP traffic, web traffic, although HTTPS has largely superseded it in the past few years. So if somebody's looking for something in particular, we just can't really tell you what it is yet, but we will keep an eye on it. And the other port I wanted to take a look at was port 23 TCP, which is Telnet, which is still very popular for IoT botnets to scan and do password guessing or brute forcing. And the spike is what caught our attention this week. I mean, it's still at the top of the list for both sources and flows, but that one spike there was a source in the U.S. So they went gung-ho for port 23 in a very big way, around 900 million scan flows per hour. And again, single source. So somebody out there really wanted to know what was going on port 23 TCP.
You did say something about we can't tell about 80, but maybe I can ask a question on, you got any theories or assumptions on why all of a sudden this popped up, gone from 11 to 7?
So why would a single source suddenly start scanning and jump up that high? Maybe they're aware of some particular bug and they want to get a head start on scanning on it, and something is coming out down the pipeline. It could also be that somebody is just interested in doing a survey of the internet on port 80 for some reason. Maybe they're looking for understanding what particular server software is out there, what maybe they're trying to scan for images. I mean, without having the context, I could speculate all day. I haven't heard of any major vulnerabilities that would be delivered over port 80 in particular. And like I said before, port 80 for critical services has largely been superseded by port 443 because it supports encryption. And a lot of web services have moved that way in the last decade for sure. So maybe it's something in an older service. It's not really clear. And some people still serve sites over port 80 because there's not a lot of critical information going over. I mean, sometimes it's just cheaper and easier if all you're doing is providing very simple, non-critical information to simply serve it over port 80. So I don't have a solid answer for you, Tony, but I have a lot of possibilities. I hope that helps.
And there wasn't like a large or single address, let's say, that did that, right? Or you could tell, I mean, obviously 80 is going to be spread across all the different, nodes across the internet, but was there one maybe that was higher than normal or going to cause that to increase?
So for port 80, there were a handful of different sources, but all of them were largely responsible for the spikes you see in these different time frames. So the largest spike you see there on the right, I believe, was 1 or 2 sources, but some of the other ones were a handful of sources. But again, like a single source from one region and a single source from another and a single source from another. So they did seem to have some bandwidth and some ability to pump out packets behind them. It is possible, I think, and I would have to go back and check how our scanning detection algorithm works. It is possible that some of these were forged source IP addresses and something funny is going on where a large number of hosts are forging the same source IP. But I'm not sure about that. That doesn't make a lot of sense as a scenario to me. Why send the traffic back for a service like that if you're not expecting a response to the right place? Unless you set up a single collector. But that doesn't sound like anything I've heard of being done before. So I think more speculation is all I've got.
I like the fact that you went down 1,000 different avenues. I mean, it just shows what's possible out there.
So that's actually a large part of the job. Is if not jumping to conclusions, which I'm hoping no one is misinterpreting is what I'm doing here. But coming up with possibilities based on what I already know, even if I don't have the complete picture of what's occurring, coming up with possible scenarios and then seeing if I can tease anything more out of those with the assumptions that are from that. Maybe it is, solution A that I've come up with. How would I prove that to be true? What would I need to do and what data would I need to go after in order to do that? And a lot of times you end up with just wild goose chases. You go down a rabbit hole and it's nothing, but sometimes you find your way to a solution that way.
It's the scientific method. You have a hypothesis. You just pulled it out of the air. In the circumstance, it could be just that. You test it, and then if you prove it wrong, you still advanced. So, I mean, I think it's fantastic to just kind of bounce those ideas out there. It definitely, as you said, you're not taking assumptions and this is what it is. You're just bouncing thoughts out there, and that's what counts when it comes down to what we do.